Gordon, fantastic. Excited to jump into our chat today. When I heard that you're a fellow Irishman, I was pumped to get into it. So excited to have you on board. Thanks for making the time, and yeah, welcome.
Yeah, great to be here, Garvin. Appreciate you reaching out and taking the time to chat as well. I know you're very busy, so excited to jump into it for sure.
Amazing, fantastic. So I guess to give us a bit of a background of yourself, obviously, as I've let the cat out of the bag, you're an Irishman, so you grew up in Ireland, presumably, but maybe give us a bit of a sense of, what life was like well prior or much in advance of, you going online and kind of leaning into becoming a creator. Like, tell us about life growing up. What were you interested in? And I'm interested to hear the tapestry of what got you to putting yourself out there online.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, grew up in Ireland, lived most of my life there, went to school, went to university, all of that good stuff. Always was interested in technology growing up. Played a lot of sport as well, played a bit of rugby. And in university, I studied business and did a master's in digital innovation. And so that intersection of business and technology has always been the kind of overlap that has interested me most. And so what I ended up studying was pretty much in line with all of that. Went on to work at IBM for a few years in Dublin. So kind of taking the technology and business side of things, was doing technology consulting with IBM. Did that for a few years, like I said, and then moved to Canada, where I lived for a few years and was also working in the technology consulting arena for another tech consulting firm in Toronto. And yeah, from there, like even from a young age as well, I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and business, and I've always wanted to start my own business. And so ended up making a decision at the end of 2019, I think it was, where I basically said, like, this is great. I've got great experience from a few years of doing technology consulting. I'd already kind of become obsessed with Bitcoin and crypto from early 2017. Wow. But yeah, decided to start my own business back at the end of 2019. Initially started a bit of an e-commerce consultancy. So we were working mostly with e-commerce brands doing direct to consumer. And so basically had an agency where we were doing design and build work to help build storefronts, redesign storefronts, and then help e-commerce brands grow. And have been running that for a number of years since then. And in the meantime, I've continued to study Bitcoin and crypto and that whole landscape. Ended up in the bear market, writing a book about Bitcoin as well. So when price action goes low, it's a bit depressing. So I decided to use that energy to turn it into something useful, hopefully. So yeah, I guess from there, at the end of 2023, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to be more involved in crypto and Bitcoin directly, and decided to ultimately, just start a YouTube channel in January of 2024 and started posting pretty much every single day. And I'm sure we'll get into some of the creator side of things there, but it really just started from a conscious decision, Garvin. Like, I'd been investing passively in Bitcoin and crypto since 2017. Made a decision at the end of that year to kind of say, look, I want to be doing this full time. This is what I'm most passionate about. And I think it comes back to that intersection of technology and business and everything that Bitcoin and crypto enables. So that's the short version, but happy to kind of dive into anything there that we want to double click on.
No, amazing. I really love it, and grateful for the insights. I guess I'm fascinated to get a sense of, do you feel like the experience you had working in a multinational like IBM, where you have to master the skills of communication ultimately to move forward with your career? Do you feel like some of that, and obviously what you then achieved with over in Toronto, and then obviously with your own business, was that helpful for you as kind of leaning into becoming essentially a communicator, a broadcaster, a creator in the previous years?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everyone's path is a little bit different, but the consulting and tech work that I did was very client facing. And so I think when you're in an environment where you're having to, entertain clients is one thing, but also, make sure that you're delivering and executing and implementing technology. And I worked mostly as kind of like project manager, product manager type roles where, you're on that client facing position where you're helping to manage developers and designers. And then I kind of took those skill sets into my own business as well. So absolutely, I think it all played a big role in the trajectory that I took. And in the moment, sometimes it doesn't feel like that. And maybe for other people who are in that at the moment, it may not feel like that in the exact moment, but with the benefit of hindsight, I can kind of see, or have the luxury of being able to see that, the skills that I picked up along the way absolutely all contribute to what I'm doing now, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like even at a very light touch of understanding your history, it's great to see how, those aspects all, as you say, they all come together from both education and then both from just the day-to-day habits that one has to have in a multinational to kind of get forward. So I'm fascinated to know, back in 2017, so you were already exposed to Bitcoin, you knew about crypto, you were investing. Was that a cause, do you think, of the people that you were around, or was that just kind of personal interest, stumbling across stuff on YouTube, or what was the source of that learning?
Yeah, great question. I think it was, a little bit of just personal curiosity. I don't think a lot of people around me were talking about it at the time. I mean, I'd heard about it a few years prior, and I think everyone in Bitcoin has that story where we always wish we bought more when we first heard about it. So I think that's a pretty common story. But it was really just kind of piquing my curiosity, and like I said, I'd always had that interest in technology and business, and I think what Bitcoin enables is, effectively a new money standard, a way for people to take back control over their financial future. And now we've seen the birth of decentralized finance with Ethereum, and we have so many applications, protocols, and ways to earn money and essentially be your own bank in the world of crypto and DeFi. So for me, it was a lot of kind of personal exploration, YouTube, a lot of different publications, like Bitcoin Magazine and all those early publications a few years ago that were covering the topic, that piqued my initial interest. And I definitely I rode that roller coaster for the few first years. And you might remember the whole ICO boom back in 2017. You had all these initial coin offerings on Ethereum, and there was plenty of rug pulls. So I think that first couple of years was a baptism of fire in kind of learning the technology, but also learning that there's going to be, good and bad actors in the space, and you have to use discernment to be able to figure out what is ultimately a worthwhile investment. Yeah,
very, very well said. It's for someone who's been involved since 2017, and of course, folks who would have been involved even beforehand. It's funny, the juxtaposition of when people today feel like there's still a little bit of a Wild West element to the crypto space. I mean, it's kind of, words can't be described kind of what it was at a certain point back then. So I guess you came in at a good point where there was enough structure and still enough opportunity, which is fantastic. And then obviously you segued forward with the business. So fast forwarding then, I guess, to 2023, let's say Q4 2023, presumably the concept of starting to create content was kind of simmering with you. What got you there and what got you thinking about it? And then I guess I'm fascinated to know, talk me through exactly like what got you to take out the camera for the first time and just plunge right into it.
Yeah, good question. So I think it was something that had been brewing under the surface. I guess I'd actually been writing a little bit about crypto. Like, I'd written a number of articles that were kind of featured on different publications as just kind of guest posts. And I had started like a small blog a few years prior as well. So I'd already started producing content in written form for a couple of years before that. And, video is obviously a big leap compared to written content because it requires a whole different skill set. It requires, obviously, maybe overcoming the fear or that initial friction that you might have when you start doing that. But ultimately it came down to the fact that I was passionate about this space. And if you put a gun to my head and ask me, what would you like to be doing for the rest of your life, like it was going to be Bitcoin and crypto. And I think you probably know Michael Saylor and all these people in the Bitcoin space with MicroStrategy, and he's an advocate of he'll be buying Bitcoin forever. I think I will too. Like, I'll be buying Bitcoin in my grave, and that's the kind of outlook I have. So ultimately, I had to ask myself the question, like, ultimately, what would I want to be doing for the rest of my life? And this is it. And I think, as with business and as with any skill set, I think it makes it easier when you have a passion for the underlying thing you're doing,
Yeah.
because there's always going to be hard days in business or in whatever you're doing. And it just makes the hard days easier to stomach when, when you're passionate or when you love what you're doing. So
Yeah.
that was the question really that kind of spurred me into action. And then it was a matter of, the logistical pieces of starting to actually break out the camera and recording and starting to post content. The way that I approach that, Garvin, is basically like, from the outset, I said, okay, if I can post every single day and do that for like a year straight, the 365th video is going to have to be better than the first video. So that's the approach I took. And I definitely look back, and I've never deleted a video, like going back to the first videos on the channel. Like, I definitely cringe looking back at them, and I still cringe looking at the new ones as well. But I can see a measurable improvement, and I think that's ongoing as well. I think I want to, keep trying to level up, and it's part of that journey for sure.
Really amazing advice. I think like the fact that you committed to daily for a year, it's advice that I've actually heard from another creator of ours who is monumentally successful, and he chalks down the initial kickstart to that kind of 12-month commitment every single day. And I don't know if you ever came across, it reminds me of the Jerry Seinfeld kind of habit building, just don't miss a day on the calendar, regardless of the output. Over time will improve, and I guess your talent will increase, which you've massively proved, Gordon. So super inspo for anybody who's thinking about becoming a thought leader in their own space. And actually that leads me to ask, and I'm fascinated to get your sense of it now, kind of looking back. Do you feel like that movement towards creating content around crypto in a way that was kind of non-committal to some degree, in the sense of you were producing written content, but you were leaning in ever so gently? Like, do you feel like that was a good segue into then putting yourself online versus just a stark kind of deep dive into the cold water? Did it help you move towards it?
I think so. Like I mentioned, I still think it's a different modality, doing video versus written content, but it kind of helped. Yeah, like dipping your toe in the water. It was a useful way to create content. And I've been starting to post a bit more on X lately for crypto related stuff as well. And so it's kind of coming back full circle to the written side of things again, where I'm able to use all the video content to repurpose it and break it down into posts for X. And all of it contributes for sure. I think putting in the reps that you mentioned on the daily basis is important. And you never know who's watching as well, because it took, I think, probably 500 days of posting videos. And, I'd had a couple of brands or people reach out to me, and the guys from Fluence as well. But when you put yourself out there, you're opening yourself up to opportunities that you never even knew existed, before that. And I think the serendipity of the opportunities that arise from just doing the consistent work is something that continues to surprise me. So I think I can touch on a couple of examples if you want, but that consistency, you just never know who's watching and who's going to reach out.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more. The preparation leads to the look. I would love to actually hear some of the examples. I think it's super inspirational if you're comfortable sharing any.
Yeah, for sure. So the big one that comes to mind, I'm not sure how much you've looked into the BitTensor Tau ecosystem, but Tau is kind of an AI-driven crypto, and there's a number of different subnets that operate on the BitTensor network. So I've been posting content for a year and a half, around 500 videos or so on the channel, and there's a subnet operating on BitTensor called Bitcast, and those guys reached out to me about creating content because they're a marketing subnet within BitTensor. And the opportunity that has arisen with them to be able to create content and basically get paid from brands who are paying for exposure. The way that Bitcast works, just super quickly, is brands can approach them to do content briefs, and Bitcast has access to all of these creators on YouTube and now on X as well, where they can basically blast all that content out to them in a very efficient manner because it's being incentivized by the protocol, BitTensor Tau itself, and the incentive mechanism that Bitcast creates to tap into the network of creators and then get brands issuing briefs at the same time. And so I'd been posting a little bit of content about BitTensor Tau before those guys even approached me. But had I not been doing that, I never would have opened myself up to that opportunity. And so since they approached me, I've been able to start producing content, and the ROI from the YouTube videos had been pretty negligible up until that point. But then when you start working with, even you guys or someone like Bitcast, you have the opportunity to, earn income from what you're producing. And, just one example of, 500 days of videos in a row before something like that actually happens without seeing much ROI. Yeah. And then, you get those opportunities that kind of come with the compounding effects of the efforts that you've been putting in.
So well said. Exactly. Just as you were explaining that, I kind of really envisaged that pretty well, probably, reproduced kind of imagery around breaking through the wall or whatever it might be, the digging man through the tunnel kind of thing. And ultimately, like, those who give up just before, or often people give up just before it kicks in or the transaction occurs, or, you strike oil, shall we say. So it's really, really good inspiration for anybody who's thinking about putting themselves online, or for someone who is online. I think that's also the thing, is like, if you're deep into this, or you're a year into it and you're not seeing the results yet, I think what you've just described, Gordon, is super guidance for someone to say, like, stick with it, because the serendipity comes through action, I guess, and the repetitive approach, as you say. So I guess when you were starting to put yourself out there online, did you have any kind of, I guess you were self-employed at that stage, so you didn't have any kind of fears around this feeling conflictive to anything that you were currently doing? Or did you feel confident straight in, or was there a bit of trepidation about putting yourself out there?
Yeah, I guess I did have the luxury of being self-employed, and so there was no direct conflict of interest. But I still think you can see in creators, in not just in crypto, but other industries as well. I think businesses and corporations these days have to be open to people, being able to express themselves. And maybe there is going to be conflict of interest in certain industries, but I guess I had that luxury of not really having to worry about it. But I still think that shouldn't be a blocker for people, or at least for anyone who's looking to do it. Don't let that be a hesitation to actually putting yourself out there, because you just don't know the opportunities that could lie ahead. There was definitely still a little bit of trepidation in terms of putting myself out there and, recording and posting it for the world to see. And it's not like there was a whole lot of people, watching those first few videos anyway, but, it begins to snowball, and with the compounding effects, you build an audience and you build a bit of a following. And, what surprises me now, and even though my channel is not huge, you do get very regular people commenting, and, there is people that genuinely wait, for those daily videos to drop, which is, which is humbling in a way, but also keeps you wanting to produce more content that's increasingly valuable for others.
Totally. Really, it's so exciting, regardless of like the size that you're at. You're having a true impact, and your audience are giving you that feedback, which no doubt helps you kind of propel further forward. So it's it's amazing. And as we stand, let's say December 3rd, 2025, what's your sub count today?
I think it's just under 12K, so like 11.8, 11.9, I think we're approaching. So
amazing. Yeah. I mean, within essentially, we're just over. Sorry, it was January 1st or in and around then you started?
I think it was the end of January. So we're coming up on 2 years. It'll be 2 years in a couple months. Yeah.
Fantastic. No, it's super. I mean, what's your, at what point during that, let's say, just under 2 year period, did you think, okay, we're starting to get some traction here, aside from the financial side, of course, when that kicked in, but from a subscriber point of view, was there a point where you thought, jeepers, I'm adding subs every day, this is great?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, getting to that first 1,000 was a grind for sure, because, even though I was committed to posting every day, and I wasn't necessarily needing to get the subscribers, because I was going to do it for at least a year every day anyway. you still see those numbers and you're kind of like, oh, I want to keep it. I want to see it keep going up. I think getting to the first 1,000 was, a milestone. Getting to 5K was great because that was around the time that the Bitcast reached out to me, I think, as well. Or I was around 4.5K. So the channels kept growing since then. And I think the compounding effects of that as well, I'm beginning to notice, because it took probably 3 or 4 months to get the first 1,000, and then another only another 4 or 5 months to get to 4 or 5K. And so not that it's going parabolic, but you can see the compounding effects, and you can see how it's growing over time, and even watch time hours, engagement increasing on all videos steadily over time. So I think when you're committed to doing it, and when you're consistent, it'll continue to kind of compound in that way.
Amazing. Things are healthily kind of moving forward as you trend upwards, even with the natural little pivots within it. That's fantastic. And I guess, looking forward as we rapidly come to the tail end of the year, and I'm sure you feel the same sense of how the velocity of time seems to never stop as one ages. What kind of excites you most about like the remainder of this decade as a crypto content creator?
Oh man, so much stuff. You're giving me a whole decade. I think there's so much that's going to happen. I mean, you are, on a macro level, I think you're seeing just more widespread adoption happening. You're seeing governments and nation states actually making moves to bring better regulatory clarity into the space. Personally, being entrepreneurially minded, I think over-regulation is not helpful, but I guess if we're ultimately going to see crypto and everything in this space getting mainstream adoption, we need some level of regulatory clarity. And you're starting to get that in Europe with MiCA. You're starting to get the Clarity Act, the Genius Act in the States. And so over the next couple of years, I think that's just going to bring a tsunami of liquidity into the crypto space in general. And so I'm excited for when even stable coins just become the de facto payment method, where you're already able to do it. Like, I've got crypto debit cards on my phone where I can tap to pay with stable coins in retailers. But I think when that becomes more widespread, that's when you see the vast majority of people using that as a legitimate payment rails. That's what I'm very excited to see. I ultimately think the entire financial system will be running on blockchain rails in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think, for better or for worse, and you probably know this better than others, Garvin, we're seeing the continued debasement of fiat currency with governments continuing to print. And I think that means you're just going to have to see value accrue to hard assets like Bitcoin. Even just seeing gold this past year as well, the price of gold going to 4,400. Value is going to continue to accrue to hard assets as fiat currency debases, which I just ultimately think means if you're looking at a 5 or 10 year horizon, the price of Bitcoin and the entire crypto market cap going significantly higher. And I know that it can be intimidating for newcomers or beginners, but if anyone's watching, I urge you to take 5 or 10 hours and do a deep dive into Bitcoin if you don't know a lot about it. Start looking at decentralized finance, Ethereum, Solana, the possibilities to earn yield, like becoming your own bank. This is a lot of stuff I talk about on the channel as well. It's very possible to be earning 10, 15% on stable coins, without taking huge amounts of risk. And, show me a bank that's giving you 10 or 15% yield annually. And I don't think you'll be able to find one. So that's what I'm most excited about. More adoption, people taking back financial control and being able to generate yield and income from this new payment technology.
Yeah, unbelievably exciting and so well articulated. I think the institutional adoption globally is just, as you said, will lead is leading and will continue to lead to a continuous tsunami of finance, of capital, of attention coming into the space. And I think that's where the excitement comes from. I guess, does that also, looping that back to being a creator in the space, does that excite you about the never ending volume and stream of exciting content that you can produce versus, let's say, if you were, in a health and wellness space or in just a traditional TradFi space? Is that something that kind of really gets you geared up?
I think so. I think so. I think there's those three big categories, health, wealth, relationships
Yeah,
that businesses often focus on. And wealth is a big part of Bitcoin and crypto, because it is. I personally think it's more of a risk not to be exposed to Bitcoin and crypto
yeah,
than being exposed to it. And I think that's what ultimately drives me every day in creating content and putting educational material out there. Like, of course I want to make money. I like to run businesses. I'm an entrepreneur as well, but I think helping other people to realize and understand the opportunity in this space means that they can earn yield and money in DeFi. They
yeah,
can build a portfolio of crypto assets that will ultimately accrue value over the next 5 to 10 years.
yeah,
And I don't think Bitcoin's going to zero, and therefore I think it's going to $1 million in the next 5 or 10 years. And if we can get more people along for that journey, that's what motivates me for sure.
yeah. Absolutely. No, it's so well said. I guess for someone who is, I've kind of two personas that I'd love your guidance on, as if you're kind of quarterbacking this to someone who's in a slightly different space. One is, what would your thoughts and advice be to someone who is ice cold and thinking about putting themselves out there online to just become a general thought leader in their space, regardless of whether it was crypto or they're working in an accountancy firm in County Meath in Ireland, and they want to, be well known for whatever they're doing. And then in contrast, someone who's in those grindy months of, let's say, month 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of year one of becoming a crypto creator, and they're not kind of making anything yet. They're in that real tricky period. What would be your advice to either of those people?
Yeah, I think for number one, for the person who's thinking about it and wants to get started, just committing to it. And I liked the concept of doing it for a full year.
Yeah,
Put some kind of time frame on it, because the easiest thing to do is post 3 posts or 3 videos and then stop. But if and it does require holding yourself accountable, but putting committing to a year or committing to 6 months and going at it hard.
yeah,
um you mentioned the feedback loop earlier, that you begin to notice the feedback loop of either people commenting on stuff or the feedback that you get. And it's not about the people necessarily in your immediate circle. It's
yeah,
about the people who actually find value in what you're producing. And that could be, for someone who in County Meath who's making videos, it could be someone in, Sri Lanka that gets
yeah,
value out of the content that you're producing. It doesn't have to be people in that immediate circle. And that's the beauty of the internet and technology. It democratizes the ability for us to access people around the world. And
yeah,
so committing to it for 6 months, 1 year, whatever it is for you, and going hard. And then for the person who's grinding, I know it's going to sound stereotypical, but you just got to keep going. And like you said, it's the analogy of the miner who's digging for diamonds, and he turns around the moment before he's about to break through the wall.
yeah,
You just don't know who's watching, and the compounding effects of being consistent. And you summarize it perfectly. I think the serendipity comes from putting in the reps,
yeah.
and it can definitely feel like a grind. But if you're committed to keep going and just continue that consistency, you're going to see those opportunities popping up eventually, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. And I think what I really like, and what I want to touch on, is that democratization of media, that sometimes, let's say, someone who might be thinking about putting themselves out there online can kind of get caught up in wondering about, what Mary up the street will think when they see their video, versus actually like focusing refocusing back on the fact that, like, you actually can become a one-person media machine. You can build relationships globally. You can open up serendipitous opportunities. You can basically have whole new vistas of kind of experiences based on putting yourself out there, which initially, of course, starts in a very isolated way and may be isolated for quite a while. But then, as you're experiencing, like, I'm sure this is obviously interweaving with your entrepreneurial endeavors, and I'm sure there's tons of relationships that have come from it. And even, let's say, I'll say selfishly, the chance that I've had to meet you is from you putting yourself out there online. So I guess that's really good inspiration for someone who's on the fence about doing it, is not to get caught up in your own head about fear of judgment per se, and just go for it, because ultimately only good things can come from it if you can stick with it. If nothing else, one will build a massive form of self-discipline and habit that they'll kind of continue to use. So yeah. Gordon, really fantastic
One
advice.
final thing on that very quickly, Garvin, as well. Like
Yeah.
you mentioned being like a one-person media machine. You can be strategic about it as well. Like the use of AI tools now with with ChatGPT, Claude, all of these tools are able to allow you to be extremely strategic and efficient in how you produce content. Like I mentioned my workflow earlier, where I'm able to produce video content, but then I'm using AI tools to help break down and repurpose that into written content, and that's able to allow me to produce 5 to 10 pieces of content per day. So be strategic and be clever. Like, yes, it's a grind. You have to put in the work, but let AI and some of these tools do some of the heavy lifting to make your workflow more efficient. And you'd be amazed at just how much content you can actually produce as a one-man machine, like you said.
Really, really well said, Gordon. I'm pumped to chat again in 12 months time to see where you are. I actually could have so many more questions springing to mind. I want to know about your workflow. I want to know how you stuck with 365 days whilst maintaining a life while traveling, all of those kind of things. But I'm conscious of protecting your time. I'm super grateful for you having this chat today, and yeah, genuinely really, really enthused to connect and go at it again.
Yeah, appreciate it, Garvin. I thank you once again for having me and for reaching out. Very much looking forward to staying connected, and would love to come back in a few months for an update for sure.
Amazing. Fantastic stuff.